Hey everybody, it's Chris Whitehead back with Build an Iconic Life, and I am excited about this one. I've got one of my very best friends on this show, Brian McKittrick. Stay tuned because you're going to want to hear everything about this.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands.
Welcome to Build an Iconic Life podcast. I'm your host, Chris Whitehead. And this podcast is dedicated to help you build a life with zero regrets by focusing on how you have everything you need to stand up, stand out, and live life on your terms. Let's dive right in. Hey, Brian.
Morning.
Thank you very, very much for taking time out of your day to come talk to me and our audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I said in the intro, you know, you have become one of my very best friends. And it's funny, there's a dude living in Texas and a dude living in New Hampshire. And through the power of just networking and then getting together for live events, you know, we worked together a little bit at the beginning when you didn't know anything about social media.
Right.
And the next thing I know, we're in this thing called the Goon Squad together. We're speaking on stages together.
Mm-hmm.
You're a #1 best-selling author, kick-ass insurance agent. You now lead teams of insurance agents.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting ready to run a marathon, which when I met you, that was not who Brian McKittrick was. Dude, you've evolved very quickly in just 4 years.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. So yeah, you and I met through a mastermind group, but I think what the catalyst was you hosted a dinner, which was a great idea. And yeah, it was you and I had maybe 1 or 2 texts leading up to it, probably about like I owe you some money for dinner type of thing. But, yeah, I think about that day because that was the start of a change. I think, you know, as we grow as humans, you know, there's different stages and different things that we evolve into. One of my favorite quotes I use is something that you said: today's ceiling is tomorrow's floor. And if you're aspiring to get better, that's really what life becomes, kind of a stair step. But I think about that day, you know, I was definitely overweight.
Me too.
Yeah, I had just turned 40 like 3 months prior. And something hit me back then that, you know, this is just not what I wanted at the time of or a way I saw my life at 40 years old. So yeah, like a couple months before we met for dinner, I remember, so I had an office within a company, doing really solid, you know, business, but it wasn't a fulfilling type of business. And I said, something's got to change. That's when I joined the mastermind group. But I remember watching, like a month after I turned 40, watching a Cowboys game. And, you know, they always introduce the players, and Dak Prescott is the same height I am, 6'2". And it showed Dak Prescott 6'2", about 230. I said, hey, Natalie, my wife, I'm 6'2", 230. And she said, you don't look a thing like Dak Prescott. And I went to the Google machine and I Googled a picture of Dak Prescott, like, you know, physique, like he showed him without his shirt on. And he was a cut 230. Yeah, he's an NFL player. But I was like, that just hit me like a ton of bricks because I never saw myself. My visual conception of Brian as a person was never a fat boy. You know, I was wearing size 38. I had been 32 forever and, you know, getting into insurance. And instead of being an athlete anymore, I was riding a desk and just every year added 10 pounds. So that was the first part to something's got to change because that physical picture did not match. And I think that's when, I know Ziegler talks about that, when the physical picture and the mentality of yourself doesn't match, that becomes a catalyst to make a move.
You know, it was absolutely mine as well. I remember anticipating looking at photos coming back from that mastermind because I'd paid a lot of money and I'm now in a room with huge influencers. And so I want to see photos of me. And I'm looking at all these photos and I'm like, who's the fat guy in the pink shirt?
Right.
And I then realized what Robin had been saying to me for the last 3 years. She was trying to be really kind about it. But, you know, I don't know about you, but for me, I was drinking to try to calm my nerves, and getting older. And like you, I'd been an athlete all my life. And then when I started my business in the remodeling industry, I would go on job sites and do the work. But,
Yeah.
for the last 5 years, I had not really been out in the field, and I had gained this weight and I didn't see it, but I saw it that day.
Mhm.
And thank God that there are so many different types of catalysts, because that was exactly mine too. I'm hanging out with people that are highly successful.
Yep.
I see myself as highly successful, but the image didn't match the mentality. And it started a catalyst with my physicality
Mhm.
that then dove into every area of my life. And I've seen it happen to you as well.
Mhm.
And I want to make a distinction about that on this podcast, because so many times we see people that are in really good shape and it seems really vain.
Mhm.
They just talk about that all the time. When the truth is, by taking care of yourself physically, I think you open up the door to being able to look at other areas, because your confidence rises.
Right. Absolutely.
And is that been your experience too?
Yes. 100%. So, even around your home, if you're not confident the way you look, you hide it at home too. And this is with with your spouse and your kids. So it's like, if you don't feel comfortable in how you are, you're gonna hide it, and so you're basically hiding from the closest world you have. How is that going to translate to how you hide in real life? It's and then when you're put into a room like that of, oh man, I'm just going to be seen by all these people who look better and do better. Yeah, it makes a change. You're either so uncomfortable you don't go back, or that uncomfortable feeling turns into, I got to make a change.
So tell us about, you started seeing that, you needed to make change. You started making that change.
Yeah.
How did it transpire in your life into other areas? What did it open up that you can look back on now and say, wow, because this happened, it gave me the ability to look at this and this and this and this. Tell us the evolution of that.
Yeah. Okay. So, what that started was my, I guess, introduction into a higher level of personal development. Like, I'd read Zig Ziglar and Stephen Covey and Tom Hopkins and John Maxwell, those great books, those great classic authors in that space. But I was inconsistent. And I think one thing about me growing up, I didn't have much discipline. So, I grew up a pretty rough, broken childhood. So I didn't have the discipline from my parents. So I didn't put discipline on myself. But what it started was, it became, I substituted discipline with responsibility. So, part of the mastermind group was learning certain things and implementing those things, and you're held to it. If you take it seriously enough, you're held to it. I think so. When you and I started talking and learning more from yourself, and then the late Ronnie Robinson, was, you know what, there's ways to do this, and I felt responsibility to accomplish those things because I knew you guys were in my life to notice that about me, to A, encourage it, but B, expect it. Same thing with the mastermind group. Okay, as I get in, getting ascend in that group and doing more work there, the people that run the group, or the other bigger names of influencers like you mentioned, they're noticing. And then I add a business coach, and then she notices it and has to expect certain things. So I substituted discipline with responsibility, because I'm not going to let the people that count on me down. I actually had this conversation with my son this morning driving in. So he's the kind of person that got to be pushed to get ready. He doesn't want to get up, and like any 9-year-old, and go into school. It's not exciting for him. So I said, this is something that I expect in the morning. He didn't like that phraseology. And so I said, okay, son, let me ask you this question. When you get home, do you expect to be able to eat whatever you want, or, eat something if you're hungry? Do you expect to have a warm, safe house, the dogs to be there, your mom and I to love on you? Do you expect to have clean clothes and the things you need to learn? Well, he goes, yeah, I do expect that, I guess. I think that that's normal. I said, well, some people don't have that, number one. Number two, that expectation I have to fulfill. So I feel a responsibility to him. So I'm not going to get to the point where I'm going to let him and Natalie, my wife, down. So the same thing happened to me in a business sense. So, having a trainer now, having a personal mentor who's a former, NFL player, there's responsibilities I have to those people in my life, you guys in the goons. And if I did something that's completely out of my personality, I know that the 5 of y'all will be like, "Hey, Brian, what's going on, man? What can we do to help you?" Or,
Mhm.
What are you doing? This is really out of character for you." So that's how I made that change is my own lack of discipline, if you will, I substituted for responsibility.
And it it runs right back into one of my favorite sayings, alignment is greater than assignment.
Mhm.
You know, the one thing that I've seen you do and what you've talked about here is you have been very careful to make sure that you put people that are aligned with your core values in your life.
Mhm.
And what I've seen you do is to put better and better and better people around you. And you literally are that example of I am the 5 people that I surround myself with.
Mhm.
And so it's very easy for you to look back and say, I mean, you did all the work,
Right.
but it wasn't the mental toughness that I thought was going to be required before I ever took the step. I just started hanging out with different kinds of people. Therefore, I was willing to do different kinds of things. Have there been times in that you have been really challenged with some of your belief systems, or have you found it to be a very pleasant experience for the most part?
Um, Beliefs as in, okay, so I can say some of the stuff that you do from a marketing sense and the business sense, some of it was foreign in terms of like social media marketing, that kind of thing. It felt foreign and got me to thinking, is this going to work? But then you see examples of people doing it and it working for them to go, okay, well, he's no more clever, smart, unique than I am. I can do that same thing in my own way. And I think that's part of the key too, is in your own way. For
Yeah.
like a lot of people love the way, the in your face rawness of an Andy Frisella or Sean Whalen, or like the charismatic, great storytelling that Ed Milet does. But if that's not who you naturally are, then don't try to copy it. Just come out with your own personality and your own personal flavor. So once I found what that fit was for me, then it made me much more comfortable to do that. The from a
Hold on, pause. You have to tell everybody what you did, because
okay,
not only is it brilliant, but it's funny as hell. It truly is. You pulled an Eminem. If there's an insurance guy that could pull an Eminem, you literally did the 8 Mile last battle cry with what you did. Tell everybody what it is.
that's funny. So yeah, I learned that. So I am, my main business is insurance and insurance sales, which is not sexy or fun at all. So realizing that, it's like, okay, well, it's dorky, it's nerdy, it's things that people don't want to talk about. So then address that exact thing. Make it nerdy and fun. Make it a fun way. So I literally look like, if you were to think to your mind, okay, what does an insurance person look like? It's probably some guy with a straight lace haircut, wears glasses, wear a tie, looks like Mr. Rogers, right? And sure enough, that's exactly what I look like. And I just doubled down on that. So all my content is all my content, or in terms of, sorry, way I look and dress, is literally that. And I didn't, so many people in our circle, they're, the nothing wrong with it. I pretty much wear a black jeans and t-shirt if I'm not at the office, but that's like the uniform look, it's like that and Jordans and a Rolex, right? That's all the mastermind people. But, I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to talk about something, just literally look the part. So that's what I did. And I have a cartoon version of myself. So I learned not to take something so serious, not to say something that's that serious in a serious manner, and just make it crazy simple. Like when I talk about stuff, it's just very, very simplified.
The other thing that I thought was genius behind what you did, and if everybody can't gather this, Brian is a really smart individual. And if you don't think so, just get into a conversation with him and he will literally break down step by step why he thinks the way he thinks, why he said this. I mean, it's the way his mind works. But instead of coming out and rah, look how intelligent I am, he started not only making fun of himself, which shows an incredible self-image, but he started doing dad jokes, which are going to go over like a lead brick, except for the fact that you have to pause and read the thing and see the double entendre in it.
Sure.
And you started highlighting your strengths, but in a very, very subtle way as to not offend people. And when you're living in a brick and mortar world for a business, which is what you and I mean, we also own other businesses, but it's important for me not to lose touch with the people that I'm potentially going to be my clients.
Right.
And you found a way to be sassy, to be funny, but to also show what matters most to you, and to do it in a way that's engaging, which shows a level of intelligence that not everybody's willing to bring to it. And here's what's even cooler about it. When you first started putting those things out, it would get one like or one laugh. And instead of you letting that stop you, you would go into that one person and just keep feeding the information, because it's brilliant, man, because it's almost like what you do in your profession as well. I'm sure you get a lot of people that go, not now, maybe no.
Sure.
But you just keep at it because you're willing to do it. And I believe success leaves clues. And so if somebody follows along with how you do social media, they can see the tenacity that you have for actually helping people get the best rates in what they do.
Yeah. That kind of, that came from doing and this is, so in the mastermind learning thing that we went through, it's Dream 25. A lot of sales training, a lot of things starts with that. Like, who is your ideal client? I was actually going the wrong direction until you and I had a conversation, because I was like, well, my ideal client is, Tony Robbins and Grant Cardone and Jordan Belfort and those type of guys. And it really was going the wrong direction. There's not really a chance for me to get in the same room as Tony Robbins and sell him an insurance plan. Right. So, but it's like, okay, what's the commonality amongst all those people? And what I really was identifying was who I am, in terms of, okay, these are people that are, 30 plus, 30 to 60s, that's where I love to live as far as clients. These are family men. I've got a family. I usually like work, primarily insurance world is health insurance, individual health insurance. And that's who I want to work with, is families. They take insurance more seriously. They're willing to pay a little bit more. It's more of a responsibility that they have to keep it going. So I was describing my ideal client, but putting a celebrity name to it. So then it became, okay, well, if I'm seeking to work with families, I myself am a family person. So take the look, of an insurance person that I have and put that quirkiness to it, and just be exactly who they think that they're going to get. And it's not fake. I mean,
No,
it sounds like a character. It's not. It's exactly who I am, in terms of like, okay, you can talk to me at a party or at home, and okay, yeah, that's exactly how Brian is. Now, I do throw people off a little bit because I came up so rough, and occasionally they'll hear something wild, but that's not the customer stuff. That's more of a intimate setting over a period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're looking at a dude that played in a band.
Yeah, I played bass in '94. I've recorded on 5 albums, 2 are my own band. Yeah.
Yeah, who had long hair.
Yeah, 2012 was I had long hair 2 different times. Once when I was 14, and then once in late 2011 through all of 2012, I did not cut my hair. And it's naturally curly when it grows out, so that was kind of weird.
Yeah.
we
have a private name for you in our group. We call him Dungeon Master. He's I mean, dude, you're a very intellectual person, and at the same time, it's like, but I bet he's got a razor knife in his back pocket. Be real careful about this guy. And it's awesome, because I'm telling you how you're showing up right now, like literally right now, same as me. This is who you are.
Sure. Thank you.
I want to do business with people that I know, like, and trust. I want to do business with people that don't change when the poop hits the fan.
Right.
And you are the same guy no matter what. And I believe your ability to transcend all the BS on social media and say, no, this is who I am. How's that worked out for you since you started doing it?
Yeah, it's worked out really well. It's more prevalent in like the group setting, like personal development groups or insurance groups. I get a lot of action and activity that way. I'm generally getting a referral per day. One of our friends, Jessica Stroud, she was my business coach for a year. That's her thing as well in terms of that's where I learned really saw a great example of somebody who just like completely dials into their brand. It doesn't do anything else but that. And she's the same way, which is ironic. She's an insurance agent as well, or an insurance agency owner, her and her husband. And she gets 500 referrals a year. And it's from building that exact, this is who I am. I won't deviate from it. And this is all I talk about. So it's a very strong thing. And I think, the guys in the goons, the way that you present your stuff, iconic. And this is what we talk about. Different things that are important: faith, family, fitness, finance. And we keep having the same discussion over, not redundant, but the same discussion, keep it on the same brand and the same pieces, because if you deviate from that, people start to question, like, oh, well, I thought you were an insurance agent, well, now you're talking about private lending, and now you're talking about, you're flipping watches over here, or you're selling cars now. What is it you do? I don't understand what you do anymore. And if you change that, that's when people get confused. You said something about beliefs as well. Not just the business beliefs, but I think you mentioned the core value stuff. So that's a great exercises to go through. I was recently challenged by my pastor to really define more of a family and personal core values, as opposed to just a business one. A great business core values book is our good friend Thomas Keenan's Unfuck Your Business book.
Yep.
That dials it in from a business, and you can use that same format for the personal stuff too. One thing my pastor challenged me with, though, is, okay, you have your core values. How does that tie biblically into a philosophy? Ooh. Yeah. So add those extra steps in there and also, this is something really cool. What's the opposite look like? What does it look like? Yeah. Like, what does it look like to be the opposite of your core value? Because that when you start slipping to go, oh, wait, I'm doing the opposite of my core value. For instance, one of them now, mine is so I'm really believe into the head, heart, hands philosophy. Understand it, have a desire for it in your heart, and then skills to have it. So if I think about my physical side, the opposite of me being physically fit is where it already became from. It's that gut sticking out, the 38-inch waistline, as opposed to now today it's 32, which is where it had been. Right. So the opposite is me not working out, is making exceptions every single day to go, oh, well, I'll do that 5K run tomorrow, not today, even though it's on today's schedule. Oh, I'll lift tonight, or lift maybe tomorrow. And then something always comes up. That procrastination is the opposite of what it takes to get my core value of growth, and part of that growth being the physical side.
It's really interesting too, because if someone is struggling to figure out what the core value is, sometimes it's easier to go about it through the back door of looking what it is not.
Yeah. You could start.
That's basically what I just heard you say.
Yeah. You could start with what you don't want. Well, I don't want to continue to wake up hungover and or wreck my car, or be belligerent to my family. So obviously drinking's got to change. But is that a core value? No, that's just a step to fix. But maybe the core value would be sobriety or clarity. Because when you drink or do drugs, or you're losing clarity in your mind.
Yep. I appreciate that. I think that's an incredibly powerful nugget that you just left everyone. In this process, you also wrote a #1 best-selling book that is universal. It's not just for insurance. And why don't you tell everybody about that?
Yeah,
absolutely. Tell them about the experience as well as about what the book is about.
Okay. So my book, initially my first thought of writing a book was a sales book. So it's called, I'm going to look picture here for the video. I got hardbacks now.
Oh, nice. I'll get one of the hardbacks. That's awesome.
It's called It Ain't Rocket Surgery. It started off as a sales book. What I initially was doing was I was going through the alphabet and having a sales skill for every letter. But two things came up that became problems. Number one, some words just don't start with certain letters, like X. J, surprisingly, has very few words that start with it. So I was really having trouble. I had gotten 21 chapters plus an intro and an outro. And this was, I want to say, about March. And so I told my editor, Catherine, who you'll speak with very soon. And I was like, man, we're running into kind of a block here. And I said, also, it's non-linear, like it's like randomized. Like, so I said, what if I change it to be more of a succession type thing? So the book is actually 3 parts. There's 7 chapters working on the salesperson. There's the next 7 chapters working on your sales environment. And then the last 7 chapters are actually working with clients. So it's kind of interesting that 2/3 of the book is before a client even comes onto your sales floor and into your
Success leaves clues, everyone.
2/3 of the work is before you ever talk to anybody. So,
amen.
Yeah.
My whole life story.
If you think about it, that's really really how it is you have to get ready first. Then, and almost that applies to almost everything. You wouldn't apply for a job and then learn to do the job. No, you would need to know those skills and knowledge ahead of time, then qualify for the job. Sports, you wouldn't just be like, okay, I'm here to play third base for the Texas Rangers. No. You had to have gone through all this other stuff first. So that's kind of was the flip there. And then I wanted it to be, I went back to that fun piece. It's like, I wanted to be more fun. So I was at one of our fly-in mastermind events, and the title or the theme of that event was actually writing, publishing, getting your book out there. So
Yep.
Several of the people that had already done their books were giving lessons on what to do. But I ended up in a conversation with a mutual friend, Burton Hughes. His book had already been written. He was really developing like a big launch, and he hit like Wall Street Journal, USA Today level stuff. So he and I were talking, and I said, I've got the majority of it written. I think I was about 30,000 words at that point. And Catherine's like, that's really enough. We can go with that. And I was telling Burton, and he's like, well, what's your book about? What are you doing? I told him, well, it's initially written to be salespeople. He's like, okay, well, let's think about this. You're competing now. You're stepping into the same field with Cardone, Belfort, these great sales trainers, right? He says, are you comfortable putting your book against theirs? And then so we were just talking. We went from just basically walked ourselves out the building talking about the book stuff. And he said, if this was your chance, your only one chance to write a book, and your kids are going to read it and all this stuff, are you at that level now? This is where you want to stand with it. And that was a challenge he put to me. And I was like, you know what? It's not as good as it could be. It's not as good as it can be, especially at that level. So I went back and just really dialed up more, not like to make it more, but to leave the reader with, okay, this is absolute clarity in this chapter. You can go from not having done this to read this chapter and get the concept. And then I also added it to where this is just kind of my process when training is there's a preface, like an introduction to the chapter, meaning like, this is what we're going to talk about. This is the points that we're going to make. Then I had the chapter, and then afterward have takeaways like, okay, step this, step that. And each chapter, you can scan a QR code or go to a web link at the end of each chapter. It takes you to a PDF. There's a work page, just a single one page. Doesn't have to be this long drawn out thing. There's one single workbook page for each chapter. So I got this workbook to go along with the actual book itself. So you can take that and implement there. And that really helps solidify that piece. And then to keep it fun, each chapter starts with a cartoon. So I went to that. The guy's actually deceased, the guy who I get the cartoons from, but his staff, whatever, they kept his name on. So there's a guy named Glassbergen. And that's the start of each chapter, is this little thing there. So it makes it kind of fun. But that's when I went back and added it to it. And then, I wanted it to be a bestseller, obviously, but I was like, I want this to be a big, big launch. So I sponsored a live event, and I had took, learning these implementation strategies. Stacy Rasky was a big help, another best-selling author in our circle. And she had posted, some of the lead up stuff there. But what I started to do was my graphic artist had made me another character. So the book is called It Ain't Rocket Surgery. The character of the book, if you will, is an astronaut. I call him the sales astronaut. And so I took that graphic and I made an Instagram post size deal with a hashtag, It Ain't Rocket Surgery. and each chapter of the book has a quote from a high-level business person, usually in our circle. These are other entrepreneurs, marketers. One's a Navy SEAL, former Navy SEAL, retired, who also ran for Congress. Quote him in the book. So I took these quotes and started leading up to the book launch. And I remember the first day I had posted the cover. So it was a great response, friends, family. Oh, awesome. I can't wait to read it, whatever. It was about a month out. And there was a guy who commented with a laugh emoji. He goes, when did you come up with that? Or how old were you? Sorry. How old were you when you came up with that title? And I replied, 41. It's like, well, I wanted to say, what's the name of your book? Because I can't find your name in Amazon. So, tell me yours. And if you don't have one, then you can sit down. That's a key point, though.
Yeah.
I told this at the live event. When we did our Goon Squad speech, I said this: you're never going to get made fun of from the person who's done more. I've given my book to other sales trainers like Weldon Long. At an event, I gave a book to Matt Monero, Judge Graham, other authors. They didn't laugh. They're like, "Awesome, man! Thanks for the book. Here's, we traded books. I put my book in people's hands, and no one laughs. They're like, okay, awesome. So you're not going to be made fun of by the people that are doing more than you. It's the people that are doing less.
And the truth is that only 1% of the world is published.
Yeah. Yep.
So you're in a very elite group just to begin with. And it's an amazing read. Like dude, it's a friggin' Bible for sales. It really is.
Thank you.
And I love the idea. It actually gives me goosebumps because I'm the one that feels blessed to be surrounded by people like you. Good enough wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
Don't live your life as if good enough is good enough.
Sure.
And that's one of the things that I respect about you the most. You were already comfortable when you and I met, based upon many people in the country, much less in the world. Financially, you're doing well.
Sure.
Wasn't good enough. And even though you didn't have some of the skill sets, like when I met you, you had 200 friends on social media, man.
Right.
Like you didn't know your ass from deep center field, but good enough wasn't good enough. And you were willing to challenge yourself, and your self-image wouldn't allow you to maintain imposter syndrome. You're like, I can learn this, and maybe I won't do it like they do it, but I'll do it the way Brian does it. And that's been my experience of you. You live your life the way you live your life. You're, as far as I'm aware, you're the first person that started bringing your 7-year-old child into a grown-up mastermind where grown adults won't even show up because they have imposter syndrome. You helped me make sure that because I took that and I was like, well, I'm not going to bring my kids, but I'll bring my wife. And then everybody got to know Robin really well. The next thing you know, I am bringing my children to that mastermind. And for me, one of those things that I wanted to highlight about you is you didn't come in the rah-rah guy. You didn't come in the guy going, look how big my pecker is. Right. You came in going, let me serve. Let me serve. And I have never not seen you be that guy. You have, dude, I've got presents all over my damn house from you because every time we get together, you're like, I bought you these, I bought you this, I got you. It's just who you are. And at the same time, you know that you have the longevity to outlast those that won't. Yeah. And to me, that's iconic, man. It truly is.
I appreciate you saying that. I think part of it is some people, when you grow up without much, it doesn't take much to be happy with. But I also just really started to look for the gratitude in small stuff. Like, I've never been a fanboy type. We've got some great people, famous people even in, the stuff that we've done together the last 3 years. And, it's not, I just don't get turned on by that kind of thing. I'm not as much into the flashier type stuff that you see some folks wearing. Not that you don't want good stuff. I want good stuff, but I just don't get super turned on by the glitzy glamour stuff. Like I jokingly see people on social media, and I jokingly with my friends, I call them the boats and hose people, where it's like, that Step Brothers, where it's like they're on the boat and there's chicks and they got the watches and all this stuff. It's like there's people on social media, that's exactly what their stuff is. They're like, oh, this is the kind of money that I make and I'm doing this and this. And it just, it comes down to just the family stuff, conversations. Some of the best days have nothing to do with anything in that regard. I think if you're with the right people, like that alignment you're talking about, you can sit in a restaurant and have a great conversation, or the back of a church, or just around a table, and that be the most entertaining and the most fun day. You don't have to be, racing Lambos up and down the street.
I thought it was funny. I don't know, we have 30 some thousand people following us or following me on Instagram. I say us because it's a whole team, but that started getting a lot of people that are influencers reaching out to me and, hey bro, you want to collab, you want to do this.
Sure.
And it always starts in your hidden messenger because they're not friends with you. So you go over there and you're like, damn, I've got like 300 of these. So I started going through them, and I got onto this one guy, and he must be 22, and he was giving life advice with the boats and hose kind of experience on his timeline. And I'm just like, dude, you're 22. Like, what kind of life advice can you get? I mean, obviously you've made a lot of money as an influencer. That's great. But, hold off on the deeper meaning to life stuff. You haven't even had a kid yet. Like, you don't know what a cold bead of sweat is until you have one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and some people have certain things figured out at a young age. I'm in a,
true.
different investment groups that you can learn from people, especially new money, crypto,
Sure.
Forex type stuff. I'll definitely listen to, a friend of mine. Yeah, Ben. Yeah, he's a friend, and then he's one of my coaching people. But dude figured it out crypto wise, and that dude knows how to do it, and he knows what to find. That's a guy I listen to.
Yep.
But on the flip side, it's like, hey, okay, there's an insurance guy that I know. He asked me a question specifically. This is how your coaching stuff can go, but he asked me a question specifically about raising a kid on a split family.
Yeah,
because I did that,
Yeah.
and that's what the 22-year-old guy won't be able to tell you.
Yep.
It's like the other conversation. He's a coaching client, but it's like we've had conversation this, conversation that, but it's like, you have experience with this. Can I ask you a question about something that's not business related? Sure. Another guy I can think of, just incredibly well financial wise, but he doesn't have, it's like, does he have friends? There's people that we know that make a lot of money that are by themselves.
Yep.
So there's different. Yeah, I think there's more things important than just some of that financial stuff. Plus the fact that someone's always got more. There's always gonna be someone walking in the room who's just got more money than you. I'm glad our mastermind event like that that we were going, that we were involved with together was not that type of person in there, because someone's going to walk in with a bigger wad than you and put you down. Yep. And so it's just, it doesn't make sense to do that.
And sometimes they're the people that you least expect.
Sure. The guy who's not talking, sitting back there, just listening, or asks really good questions and doesn't say nothing. And he's got the biggest wallet in the room. Yeah.
Well, I think the biggest takeaway from today, for me at least, was when you started talking about family core values, and not only understanding what you do stand for, but also understanding what you stand against and how that leads into proper alignment. Mm-hmm. And I really hope people take notice of that. Brian, we're going to wrap up, man. If people want to get to know you better, if they want to reach out and talk to you, mm-hmm. what's the best way for people to reach out?
Yeah, I made it really simple. It's just my name.com, brianmckitrick.com. And Brian is spelled with an I, Brian, and last name is spelled M as in Michael, Kittrick. So brianmckitrick.com. It's got social media links, my podcast link, get the book. And if you have an insurance need, question-wise, health or life specifically across the entire country, you can get information there, including getting a quote or a request for a phone call.
Appreciate you showing up, brother.
Yes, thank you.
All right, brother. Take care. See you, everybody.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand.
Hey, friend. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, please leave a review and subscribe to catch future casts. If you really enjoyed this episode, make sure you share it so others can benefit from it as well. I'll see you in the trenches.
Try to catch me howling at the moon.